Hola amigos y bienvenidos a una lección sobre los demostrativos en español. The word demostrativos and the finger pointing on the screen both help us to realize what demonstratives do. They allow you to demonstrate exactly what it is that you're talking about. So demonstratives in Spanish are the equivalent of saying things like this house, that car, or those shoes over there in Espanol. So, started. Here's some examples of some demostrativos en español. As I said, they tend to mean things like this and these. So I like to teach this by looking at examples. Let's start with the example of este zapato, which means this shoe. Otro ejemplo, estos zapatos is the plural version of the same idea, these shoes. Esta camisa means this shirt, and estas camisas, these shirts. So as you're taking notes and getting oriented to this idea, you want to make sure that you have the vocabulary words este, estos, esta, and estas written down and on your list to study, and then you need to memorize their equivalents for this and these in the masculine, and this and these in the feminine. And I have an accompanying handout in your PowerPoint that I think should really help you to organize this information or even to double check your notes, which is something that I always like to do. Bueno, so now that we've handled this and these, let's take a look at that and those with some more examples. Ese abrigo means that coat. Esos abrigos, those coats. Esa bolsa, that bag, and esas bolsas, those bags. So you want to make sure that you're bringing into your vocabulary now the words ese, esos, esa, and esas, and keeping in mind what they mean. That and those in the masculine, and that and those in the feminine. Molly, something in Spanish that's a little different from English is that we have a third type of demonstrative adjective and pronoun. In English, we usually say this one or that one. But in Spanish, you can have this one, or that one over there that is really farther away, that is physically more distant. And for that idea of that one or those over there that are literally farther away, we use forms of the word aquel. So our examples are aquel almacén, for that department store over there. Aquellos almacenes, in the plural. Aquella cartera, in the feminine. And aquellas carteras. So now you're adding to your vocabulary the words aquel, aquellos, aquella, and aquellas. Vale, so now that we've said that, if you've noticed these words in action before in Spanish, you might have realized that sometimes they carry accent marks. So the big question is, when do they need accents? Because in all of the examples on the previous slides, there were no accents involved, which I'm sure was making you very happy. The question, though, when do they need accents, is simply answered in this way. Put on the accent when no noun follows the demonstrative. So let's look at some examples. No quiero este libro, quiero ese. Notice that ese that I just circled does have an accent mark because it's not followed by a noun. I do not want this book, I want that one. Here's another example. Me gustaría ver esta, no esa falda. Note that esta that I circled has an accent mark because it's not followed by a noun. But esa falda does not have an accent mark because there's a noun after esa, and that noun is falda. This is a concept you should be aware of. It might be worth it to listen to this part of the presentation again if you're not clear about it, or to pay special attention to this when you're doing your tarea. The good news is, for you, is that the Real Academia Española, the group of people that make the rules for Spanish grammar, have actually become more lax about this in recent years because native speakers themselves tend to really get confused about these particular rules. I think it's similar to what happens in English with apostrophes. Clase, don't even get me started on what a mess it is in English right now with apostrophes. People overuse apostrophe S, they underuse apostrophe S. It's just kind of a big mess. And a lot of times in grammar, when there's an overuse of a concept like that or an underuse of it, it means that eventually it's actually going to go out of style and not be used at all. So in dealing with this issue in Spanish about when the demonstratives need adjectives or not, try to just remember this rule that I've shown you on this slide. Put on the accent when no noun follows the demonstrative. But I do want to say this is not a concept to burn the midnight oil on. This is probably not the most important thing you'll learn all semester. You do need to be able to use demonstrative adjectives, but where the accents go on them is probably not my biggest priority for you. Bien. So, having said that, let me show you a little bit about one more form of demonstrative that we deal with, and those are the forms esto, eso, and aquello. Use these neutral forms, and neutral means not masculine, not feminine. Use these neutral forms when you do not know the gender of what you are talking about, or when there is no gender because you are discussing an idea or a concept, as in, ¿qué es esto? What is this? Well, clase, if I'm asking you what it is, how on earth would I know the gender of it? So it is neutral. I use the neutral form. Another example, eso es triste. That is sad. If someone's telling me a story and I'm reacting to it and I say, oh, that is sad, that is neither masculine nor feminine. It's an abstract idea or concept. I can't put a gender on it, so I use the neutral form. Eso es triste. And you should notice that the neutrals never get accents, which is usually good news for everyone. The neutrals never get accents. Muy bien. So having said that, there are a few ideas to keep in mind. I thought I'd give you the opportunity to do some practice. So here are some concepts that you can work to translate. This house, those pencils, etc. It's a good idea to pause the presentation at this point. Use what you've learned and noted so far to see if you can translate these ideas to Spanish, and then you can check your answers on the next slide. Buena suerte. And here are your answers, clase. Esta casa, esos lápices, esta maleta, ese tren, estos libros, aquellas personas, esa mujer, esos hombres, aquel cinturón. And something I'd like to point out to you about all the demonstratives used in all of these examples here on this slide, do any of these demonstratives have an accent mark? And hopefully what you're saying to yourself is no, none of these demonstratives have an accent mark, and the reason why is because they're all followed by a noun. Since they're all followed by a noun, none of them have an accent mark. So that's a good thing to notice and a good reinforcer of the idea we were discussing with accents. Bueno, bien. Here's a little more practice. I'd like you to complete the following. I've given you some translations of exactly what it is that you're trying to express. So pause the presentation here, and of course the next slide will have some answers so that you can check yourself. Bueno. The answers that you should have filled into the blanks are estas and esas with an accent, esta, aquella with an accent, and esto. So another opportunity to check in on how you're doing with this skill. And I guess I'm really excited about this one, clase, because there's still a little bit more to share. Some vocabulario clave, a few words that I think will help you when you're dealing with these. Aquí, for here. Allí, for there, and allá for over there. And you can see that those correspond with things that are referred to as this, that, and those over there. Aquí, allí, allá. Aquí, allí, allá. So just a little bit of vocabulary that I think will come in handy when you're dealing with concept. Muy bien. And as we wrap up with this, let's take one more opportunity for a practice. Here's some ideas that I'd like you to translate. This market, that clothing, those hats, etc. See if you can express those ideas in Espanol, and then we'll have one more check-in on the next slide. Buena suerte. Muy bien, and here we go with your final answers on demostrativos. Este mercado, esa ropa, esos sombreros, esta tienda, aquel suéter, ese traje de baño y aquella tarjeta de crédito. So hopefully through these notes and ideas and through these varied practices, you've gained a little bit of confidence with demostrativos. Feel free to go back and revisit the presentation or check out what your book has to say on this topic and then forge your way into your tarea. Muchas gracias, amigos. Nos vemos.